Good afternoon, and this is my presentation for Module 1, Government Control of Public Education. To start with the introduction, I am Kyle Regier. I just finished my 5th year of teaching high school social sciences. My first 4 years were at Chaparral Junior Senior High School, which is a very rural community in Harper County, Kansas. My wife and I spent our first 4 years there. And then we moved this past summer to Halstead High School, a 3A high school, 3A community in Kansas. So I've worked in smaller schools, a little bit more rural schools. So that kind of is my experience as a secondary social science teacher. So to start off with the different levels of government control of public education, we have the 3 levels. We have the federal government at the top, state government, and then local government. And as I'll explain to you, the control and powers vary as you go through the different levels. So let's start with the federal government. The federal government's role in education really boils down to really specifically 4 things, which is funding, collection of data and research, identification of problems in education at the national level, and then enforcement of discrimination laws. So really the funding is given to schools that do what the federal government wants. So federal government creates standards or creates these expectations based off of the data and research that they collect, where they have seen problems or seen issues in the data. And so then they expect schools to meet those standards, do different things like that, and as well as following discrimination laws, things like Title IX, other issues regarding gender, disability, location, income level. And so the federal government's really looking at equality in the educational product when it's looking at these 4. And that's kind of their main role. As a kind of a secondary role, post-secondary assistance, where U.S. Department of Ed gives loans, grants, and provides work-study assistance to more than 12 million post-secondary students. So those are the main roles of the federal government in education. And the federal government provides 10% approximately. One source said 8, one source said 10. So right in that area of about 10% of school funding, according to the Center for Public Justice. So then moving to the state government, and the state government really has probably the most power if they would want it. However, they have primary accountability and oversight for government-run schools, but they often delegate that power to the local governments. So they maintain standards, criteria, guidelines, rules, regulations for school libraries, education materials, curriculums, accreditation, certification of school staff, etc., etc., etc. So the state government really plays the largest role in education, but as I said, they delegate most of that power. And for funding, state level funding for schools varies a lot, and how they do it varies as well. But they provide slightly less than half of schools operating costs, according to the Center for Public Justice. Most of that, in most states, that comes from income and sales tax. Some states it comes from casino revenue. So I equated that to about 45% of funding. However, again, that can vary. That can be slightly less, slightly more. And so we're now at 55% between federal and state funding. For the local government, this is where you really come down to the day-to-day operations of schools. School districts are governed by school boards that are most often elected. Sometimes they're appointed officials, and their responsibilities include appointing a superintendent who acts as a CEO, establishing the curricula, hiring and firing personnel, deciding when schools should be closed, consolidated, or constructed, or additional construction, as well as funding for schools. And so basically, that 55% that can vary from federal and states contributions. Whatever's left is the responsibility of the local school board and school district to come up with that money. And so this is done so by collecting property taxes on all homes and businesses within the district, and doing it that way. So it comes out to local coming up with approximately 45%, and again, that number can vary. That's why I have the asterisk there, but that's going to come out to about 100% of your school funding. So for my school district, Halstead-Bentley USD 440, the Board of Education here, I think, is a very good one. They have a hands-off management style. They allow the superintendent and principals to run the district and their buildings as they see fit. They really focus on the health and well-being of their staff and their students. They have health and wellness policies for each building. They have focused more on social and emotional issues. They've made that a priority. They communicate with the community through public meetings, filming and posting meetings on Facebook, providing the public meeting minutes on the USD 440 website, making all those documents available to anyone who wants to get on the website and see them. They do a great job evaluating and using technology by listening to the superintendent and principals. And then we also have a tech team with teachers from each building who give advice and are experts on technology and the technology being used in their building. They give advice to the principals, superintendent, and even to the board about where technology needs to be improved or changed in our district. For our operation systems, the biggest ones would be Skyward, which is our biggest grades, student information, parent information, etc. And they also use that for communication as well, for school cancellations, any other big news. They send out messages through Skyward. K-12 is our technology operations system, and Google Classroom then as well, which is basically our district-wide classroom management system. But most of our information and data is going to come through Skyward, being able to look at grades, look at different classes, which students are having discipline referrals and different things like that is going to be where we draw, or attendance was where we're going to draw a lot of our data. Have a lot of interest in continuous improvement, not only in our buildings, but also in students and staff. And so working together, having high expectations, and working on continuous improvement for everyone. And that's the mission statement, engaging continuous improvement to develop successful learners. And as a teacher, I feel like that is for me as well. So for our standard correlation with PLO6, operations and management, it was interesting for me to look at this as, look at a school district as a company with, you have a board of trustees, which is your Board of Education, CEO is your superintendent, managers are principals, employees are the teachers, and then the customers are your students and the community, really. And so each group has their duties and responsibilities as required above them, and this setup allows for everyone to use their strengths to impact how the company is run. For the order of priority, I really thought that communication is number one. For me as a teacher, when I have people that communicate with me, that is number one for me. I appreciate that. Management, having the correct type of management style, not having a board that's going to be micromanaging all the time. Technology has to work, and it has to be available, and you have to be able to use the right technology. And then the operation systems, I think that goes in the approximate order. If you have the top two, communication and management, I think the other two kind of fall into place. This is relevant, showed the importance of each level of government in education, and it's a good reminder of what role each of us plays in the system. And, in reflection, this is going to help me inform my students. And as a future school leader, this will help me to remember the proper order of operations for a school district and who I'm serving. I'm serving the community. I'm serving my students first and foremost. And here are my references. Thank you.